A single airplane built to survive the end of the world. It can stay in the air for a week without landing, refueling in flight, until the only thing that forces it down is the oil in its own engines. Its wiring is hardened against a nuclear blast that would kill every other circuit on the continent. Behind it trails a radio antenna 5 miles long. From a seat inside it, a president could fight a nuclear war. It is the most survivable machine America ever built, and it cannot survive a factory closing. Right now, the United States is replacing this airplane, and the story of how is stranger than anything the aircraft was designed to endure. Because the company that built every Doomsday plane for 50 years refused to build this one. Because even a brand new airframe can't be ordered anymore, at any price. And because to find the jets, the Pentagon went shopping. Secondhand. 3 things that should be impossible. All 3 are true. Start with what the airplane actually is, because you have to understand what it survives before the twist means anything. It's called the E-4B, officially the National Airborne Operations Center. Everyone else calls it Nightwatch or the Doomsday plane. There are 4 of them, flown by the Air Force out of Offutt Air Force Base near Omaha, Nebraska, deliberately parked in the middle of the country, about as far from any coastline as America gets. 4 aircraft, that's the entire fleet, for the single most important job in the military, keeping the government alive after the ground command centers are gone, and the job is older than the plane. Starting in 1961, the Air Force kept a converted tanker called Looking Glass Airborne at all times, a flying mirror of the ground command post, so that no first strike could ever catch the whole chain of command on the ground. That alert ran continuously for 29 years. For every hour of every day from 1961 to 1990, there was an airplane overhead that could order a nuclear strike. The E-4B, a converted Boeing 747, took over the top of that mission in the 1970s and never gave it back. Here's what the airplane carries. 3 decks, a crew of up to 112 people, battle staff, communicators, officers from every branch. A conference room where the president, the defense secretary, and the joint chiefs can issue war orders. A briefing room, a battle staff room that is, in effect, a flying Pentagon. And everything about it is built backwards from one threat most people never think about, the electromagnetic pulse. A nuclear detonation throws out a surge of energy that fries electronics across entire regions. Grids, phones, ordinary aircraft dead in an instant. So the E-4B's windows are covered in wire mesh, the same principle as the door of your microwave, just pointed the other way. The cockpit is deliberately analog, no touchscreens, no glass panels, because a dial with a needle survives a pulse that kills a screen. On top of the fuselage sits a bulge called the radome, packed with dozens of satellite dishes and antennas. And from the tail, the crew can reel out a wire antenna 5 miles long, then fly the airplane in slow, gentle circles so the wire hangs stable beneath it, broadcasting on frequencies so low they push through seawater down to the missile submarines hiding beneath the ocean. It costs roughly $160,000 for every hour it flies, the most expensive airplane in the Air Force to operate. It can fly about 12 hours without refueling. With tankers, it can stay up for days. In peacetime, it hauls the Secretary of Defense around the world, and one shadows Air Force One on every overseas trip, just in case. That's the first thing to hold on to. This airplane is hardened against every external threat anyone could imagine. Blast, pulse, the loss of every base on the map. So a plane like that you protect at any cost, and you'd assume replacing it is the easy part. Write the check, pick a builder, roll out a new jet. What could possibly stop the richest military on Earth from doing that? That's exactly where the story breaks. Because look at what every threat on that list has in common. The blast is external. The pulse is external. The enemy is external. Every single thing the E-4B is hardened against comes from outside American industry. The threat that actually shaped its replacement came from inside it. Here's the situation the Air Force was in. Those 4 jets are old. Not old for a car, old for anything. The airframes were built in the 1970s, which puts them at roughly half a century. They were flying before most of the people who maintained them were born. The Air Force's own budget documents describe the fleet with a brutal little phrase: diminishing manufacturing sources and parts obsolescence. Translated, the companies that made the parts are gone, and you can't buy new ones. When something breaks, you scavenge it from another airframe, or you have it machined one piece at a time. So in 2019, the Air Force launched the replacement program. It's called the Survivable Airborne Operations Center. The new plane gets a new name, the E-4C, and the plan looked simple on paper. Take a modern 747, harden it the same way, fill it with modern systems, retire the antiques. Simple, right? Until you notice the two problems nobody put in the press release. The company that built every one of these planes didn't want the job, and the airplane it's based on no longer exists. Neither problem is about the enemy. Both are about the factory. To see the first crack, follow the money. In April of 2024, the Air Force awarded the contract. The number is enormous, $13 billion, 13.08 to be exact. It runs to July of 2036, and it is one of the largest aircraft contracts in the country. So who did the Air Force hand it to? A company most Americans have never heard of. Sierra Nevada Corporation, not Boeing, not Lockheed. A privately held firm from Nevada, best known for modifying other people's airplanes, special mission work, turning existing aircraft into spy planes and gunships. Competent, respected inside the industry, and nearly invisible outside it. Now, here's the part that makes defense people stop scrolling. Sierra Nevada didn't win a fair fight. It won because the other side left. There were two bidders, Sierra Nevada and Boeing. Boeing built the original E-4. Boeing built the 747 it flies on. Boeing has built the airborne command post for the American government since the 1970s. This was, in every sense, Boeing's airplane, Boeing's mission, Boeing's 50-year franchise. And in December of 2023, Boeing walked away. It wasn't outbid. It wasn't beaten on merit. According to the reporting, Boeing refused to accept a fixed-price contract, the kind of deal where the manufacturer eats the overruns instead of the taxpayer. Boeing had been burned by exactly that structure before on the Air Force One replacement and had lost billions on it. So this time it said no and removed itself from the competition, which left one bidder standing. Sierra Nevada took the most sensitive aircraft contract in the arsenal, essentially by default. Sit with the size of that. The plane built to command Armageddon will be built by a company you'd struggle to name, because the company that built everyone before it decided the terms weren't worth the risk. The verdict writes itself. The Doomsday plane didn't get the best builder. It got the only builder who stayed in the room. But a contract is paper. Sierra Nevada still had to put actual jumbo jets on a ramp. And that's where the second crack opens, the one no amount of money can close. Because when Sierra Nevada went looking for a modern 747 to build these planes on, it ran into what everyone in aviation already knew. You can't buy one, not because they're expensive, because they're not made anymore. On December 6, 2022, the last 747 ever built rolled out of Boeing's factory in Everett, Washington, and was delivered to a cargo airline that January. 54 years of production, 1,574 airplanes. Then the line stopped and the tooling came down. The most famous airliner in history, the Queen of the Skies, the silhouette that means airplane to half the planet, is finished. There will never be a new one. Think about what that means for a program that needs new ones. The Air Force committed $13 billion to build a fleet around an airframe Boeing had just stopped making. The replacement for the most important plane in the arsenal was obsolete as a production item before the contract was even signed. This is the reversal the whole story turns on. The E-4B can survive a nuclear war. It cannot survive the discontinuation of its own airframe. Every threat it was hardened against, it beat. The one threat nobody hardens against, a closed assembly line, is the one that reshaped its entire future. So how do you build a fleet of jumbo jets when nobody on Earth makes jumbo jets? You don't build them, you go find them. And this is where the story stops being about defense and becomes the same market collapse that keeps surfacing on this channel. Because Sierra Nevada went out and bought used 747s, 5 of them. Secondhand jumbos pulled from a commercial airline to become the aircraft a nuclear war would be run from. The 5 jets came from Korean Air. They are 747-8s, the final and largest version of the jumbo, the passenger variant called the Intercontinental. 4 will be rebuilt into Doomsday planes. The 5th gets torn apart for testing at a research institute in Wichita, so the engineers can rehearse the hard modifications before touching the real ones. Now, ask the obvious question. Why were 5 nearly new jumbo jets just sitting there, available to buy? Because almost nobody wanted them. The Passenger Dash 8 is one of the rarest wide bodies Boeing ever made. Only 48 were built. 3 airlines flew it. Lufthansa, Air China, and Korean Air. That's the whole customer list. 48 airframes for the plane meant to carry the flag of global aviation. The world had moved on from the 4-engine giant. Airlines wanted twin-engine jets that burn far less fuel. The 4-engine jumbo, beautiful and enormous and thirsty, was already dying in the passenger market. It is the same collapse that killed the Airbus A380. Korean Air had 10 of these jets, wanted out, and sold half its fleet in one transaction. I flew one of those Korean Air jumbos out of Seoul a couple of years back, not knowing some of its stablemates were about to be drafted into the end of the world. There's your priced paradox. Ask what the same airplane is worth in 2 different rooms. On the commercial market, a used 4-engine jumbo is a liability. A fuel-hungry asset an airline is desperate to offload. Bolt a war room and nuclear hardening into that identical airframe, and it becomes one of the most valuable aircraft the United States owns. Same jet? The graveyard of the passenger jumbo became the parts bin for the Doomsday plane, so count them. 3 things that should be impossible, and everyone is true. The maker quit. The company that built every Doomsday plane for half a century looked at the terms and walked, handing the arsenal's most sensitive aircraft to a firm most people can't name. The line is dead. The factory that could build the airframe closed for good in 2022, so the replacement was born obsolete. And the frames were scavenged, bought secondhand from a Korean airline, dumping a jumbo the world had stopped wanting. Now watch how the 3 lock together into something worse than any one of them. Because none of these problems can be fixed with money, and that is the part that should bother you. So why not just fix it with money? You can't. You cannot order Boeing back into the competition. It made a business decision. You cannot reopen the 747 line. The tooling is gone, the workforce is scattered, and no accountant restarts a jumbo factory for a handful of jets. And you cannot manufacture more airframes because the only ones that exist are the ones already flying, aging by the day. So the program runs the only way it can, slowly. The first modified jet flew in August of 2025, and it is in test campaigns now. The first operational replacement isn't expected until around 2032. The last arrives near 2036. Which means the 50-year-old originals, the jets with parts nobody makes, have to keep standing alert into the 2030s, kept alive on cannibalized frames and machine-to-order parts, waiting a decade for scavenged jumbos to be rebuilt one at a time. And here's the lesson underneath all of it, the thing this story is really about. Industrial capacity is a weapon. The ability to build a very large airframe is a strategic asset, exactly like a missile or a warhead. For decades, America owned the only production line on Earth big enough to make this airplane. And it let that line close for perfectly rational commercial reasons, without treating the closure as the strategic loss it was. The E-4B was designed to be immune to everything an enemy could throw at it. It turned out to be vulnerable to something no enemy did. America dismantled the factory itself. Now, the honest objection deserves an answer. The 4 aircraft flying today are genuinely capable, and they've been upgraded for decades. Sierra Nevada is a serious company, and it's already flying hardware. This is not a program in collapse. It's a program being run competently under conditions that should never have existed. But competence at the end doesn't undo the trap at the start. The richest military in history is rebuilding its most survivable weapon out of a dead airline's cast-offs on a decade-long timeline because the one factory that mattered is gone. The engineering was never the problem. The engineering is superb. The problem was a decision made years earlier in a boardroom about what was worth keeping. Here's what this airplane really tells you. You can harden a machine against a nuclear blast. You cannot harden a nation against forgetting how to build things. The Doomsday plane was designed to outlive a war. It could not outlive a spreadsheet. America built the most survivable aircraft in history and then quietly destroyed the one thing it couldn't fly without, the ability to build another. And if you think scavenging used jumbos for a warplane is strange, wait until you hear where the next Air Force One came from. 2 more second-hand 747s ordered by an airline that went bankrupt before it could ever fly them.